21st century terror threats like cyber attacks and loose nukes. Take a look at this from earlier today.
It's time to look ahead at the dangers of today and tomorrow rather than those of yesterday. America cannot afford another president who doesn't understand the threats that confront us now and in the future. Today,
all right, that is from today, and it follows Barack Obama's big foreign policy speech yesterday on Iraq. Now, the usually more favorable to Obama Washington Post editorial board had some very strong words today. Take a look at this from the Washington Post editorial. It says Barack Obama yesterday accused President Bush and Senator John McCain of rigidity on Iraq. Mr. Obama then confirmed his own foolish consistency. Earlier last year, when the war was at its peak, the Democratic candidate proposed a timetable for withdrawing all U.S. combat forces in slightly more than a year. Yesterday, with bloodshed at its lowest level since the war began, Mr. Obama endorsed the same plan. Let's bring in our political panel today. Kristen Patty is a Republican pollster. Marc Lamont is a Fox News contributor and assistant professor at Temple University. And Andrew Romano is an associate editor and political blogger at Newsweek. You know, we don't often pull out chunks of editorials that run in the newspaper, but in this case, you know, because it came from the Washington Post, it was of interest. And because they use this very strong term, his foolish consistency, Mark, does that surprise you?
I was a bit surprised, but I think it's right on the money. We can't, on the one hand, critique George Bush for being stubborn in his policy, and then we hold on to our rigidity. I think one of the problems, though, is that Barack Obama got his party's nomination by promising to get us out of the war and to get us out immediately. And now, when you get more intelligence, when you get more information on the ground, and with sectarian violence at a low, you may have to make a different decision. So he's in a tough place here. He
is in a tough place, Andrew, because, you know, when he claimed that he wanted to pull troops out, there was a lot of support for that. The situation on the ground has changed fairly dramatically, I think is accurate to say. So now if he says, which he has said at times, well, I'm going to evaluate it and we're going to talk to the generals and he's going to go there soon, you know, he gets hit on that side as well. How do you read that?
Well, I think what Obama would say is that calling for this unconditional withdrawal is a way of putting political pressure on the government of Iraq. Now, there can be a debate about whether he was right to say that before the surge, before the sectarian violence went down, and whether he's right to say it now. I think there's a point to be made that now that violence is down, there's an opportunity here to put that pressure on the government and to get out of Iraq as soon as possible.
Let's take a look at one more section of this editorial, and then, Kristen, I want to get your thoughts on this. This is another part of that same piece. It says the message that the Democrat sends is that he is ultimately indifferent to the war's outcome, that Iraq distracts us, quote, from every threat we face, and thus must be speedily evacuated regardless of the consequences. That is an irrational and ahistorical way to view a country at the strategic center of the Middle East with some of the world's largest oil reserves. They're basically saying, you know, he doesn't have a good grip on the Middle East situation, Kristen.
Right. And what we're seeing is that Senator Obama basically moved from his campaign-centric approach to the Iraq war and is now trying to reach out to the center-of-right American populace that is going to be voting for him. And since we are seeing that, he's trying to move towards the center.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Thank you very much. We'll have you back. We'll talk about it more. We're going to finish this quick thought from Kristen Patty. I cut you off before, so please finish your thought.
Absolutely. Well, what we're saying is that Barack Obama is moving towards right of center, and Senator McCain has stayed right on course, staying with the fact that we need to review what's going on in Iraq instead of just having a campaign-centric Iraq foreign policy plan.
All right, let's take a look at a new ad. This is a new Vets ad that just came out today, and just get everybody's thoughts on this. Can we hear that?
Lost. Others said the surge would fail.
But while they argued,
we continued to fight.
Today, even the harshest critics agree the surge worked.
The surge worked.
Al-Qaeda has been decimated, and the Iraqi government grows stronger each day.
These are the facts.
All right, so you have vets in that ad basically taking aim at Chuck Hagel, at Harry Reid, at Barack Obama, putting quotes up there of times that they said that it would not work. Mark, do you think that he needs to sort of have a moment where he says, you know, I didn't believe this strategy would work, but it has?
Yeah, he has to come clean with the American people, because this whole surge working thing is coming back to bite him. His fundamental premise, though, that we need to end the war doesn't necessarily get negated by the fact that the surge is working. The point is, as you mentioned, is how can we get the Iraqi government to take the reins now? Some argue now is the best time, some argue that it's not. I think whatever he does, he needs to engage the people on the ground, talk to generals, talk to the people in the midst of everything. But at the same time, he absolutely needs to come clean. The surge actually did work a bit.
All right.